One of the first things you're bound to notice when you look at the roadmap for Sulfur in its early access is the eventual multiplayer if they can hit their stretch goals. I think it's safe to assume they're gonna hit those stretch goals. They've been celebrating how many copies have sold and this and that. They've also mentioned in a community post from the CEO of Perfect Random that they have far-flung ideas for multiplayer. Like, it's definitely, probably, most likely, certainly gonna happen. I don't know how else to say it. There's a good shot that we'll see multiplayer down the line, unless, I mean, things can happen. It's game development. I don't know. I still want to entertain the idea of multiplayer coming to Sulfur and also have a conversation with you about exactly what multiplayer in Sulfur would look like. Because you can make the safe assumption, you know, the obvious one, the low-hanging fruit, that multiplayer will probably just be a co-op mode, or to some people, a coop mode, because I always get confused when people write coop. Is the game got coop? I don't know. I like to space it. Is that weird? What are you a cooper or a co-opper? Because it just looks weird. I always read it and I have to read it twice because I'm like, coop, what the hell are you talking about? That's probably me just being stupid, reading too quickly and confusing myself. I don't know why I'm going into that tangent right now. So this is another one of those videos where I'm just going to have a conversation. I'm going to get the ball rolling, and then we have to talk about this furthermore down in the comments. I mean, this conversation has to keep going. I would love to hear from a dev at some point about what maybe they're sculpting for their multiplayer, because that would be just amazing to hear the initial nugget of an idea, because as we know, in-game development, especially early access games, you start one place and then the end is completely different, and it's a whole, I mean, look at Fortnite. We'll talk a little bit about Fortnite. I find that I talk a lot about Fortnite. I don't know what that is. I don't know why I'm like that. I've accompanied with some game footage, as always. Yeah, I'm going to give you something for that little ADHD-riddled mind of yours that I also share, because we're sharing the brain cell as much as we can here. Let me slip on the slippies. I don't know, my feet are getting cold, and we want to be comfortable before we go into what could be a long-winded speech about multiplayer. Now, I just want to get out of the way, because some people are going to be like, I don't want multiplayer, I want Sulfur to remain single-player, and if Sulfur stayed single-player for the entirety of its run, I'm going to be at the same 10 out of 10 enjoyment of this game. I don't need multiplayer. I don't think it's important for what Sulfur is as a game. That said, I don't mind additional modes. It's obviously not going to take over the entirety of the game, and it's going to be a multiplayer-only title. That would be very strange, very anti-consumer, and would start a lot of backlash. And that's the kind of press that Sulfur and Perfect Random don't need, and they're very well aware of that. They've been pretty decent with press. I want them to do more. I would love to hear from them more. I'm always crying from the mountaintops that we need like a weekly update post or something. Like I said, they did one for Reddit, which was a little obscure. There is a decent amount of people on Reddit. I just want to know exactly what's going on with the development, as we all follow very closely. I don't think they expected so many people to fall in love with Sulfur so quickly. I mean, you build a game this fun, it's gonna happen. But my point is, if it never gets multiplayer, I'm not butthurt about it. I primarily play multiplayer games. You don't believe that. I know you don't. Well, in recent years, it's been more of a 50-50 split. I enjoy single player and multiplayer, and then the last month or two, it's been 100% single player, because all I've been playing is Sulfur, so I can keep making content for you, and we can keep enjoying this new obsession that we share, this camaraderie in addiction, which is a really dangerous phrase that I should never use again. Co-op is the obvious one. I struggle to see how interesting co-op would be in Sulfur if you just played through the entire story. Obviously, we'll have way more areas. There's 3 or 4 more areas that are already promised, Deep Woods being the next one. Maybe they'll feel a little bit bigger. Already, I kind of like almost the claustrophobia of areas like caves, and if I had another person running through there with me, it would feel a little crammed. And I also think the amount of enemies would need to be doubled. Probably not even doubled. They need to be tripled or quadrupled. For Endless Mode, I expect to see those numbers rise as you go through, and it's good that they waited to do Endless Mode, because the optimization isn't through yet, and this game is going to need to be heavily optimized and running perfectly for everyone, especially if we're talking about multiplayer, and that's the first thing they're addressing. They're doing it right. Look at the roadmap, fixing shit, number one. That's already the right move. You're doing a great job with that. We expect to see some pretty insane increases in difficulty when it comes to Endless Mode. That's just how Endless Mode works in these kinds of games. I still feel like if it was a co-op experience, it would be too easy if it was just the same amount of enemies or double. I think you would need triple or quadruple because like once you beat the game and you start to understand how to build a gun, it's not as difficult anymore. And if you had 2 people that were running around with these high-powered weapons, it wouldn't be a challenge. It wouldn't be very challenging at all. And that's why I think maybe it might not be a bad idea to, instead of having co-op, which, like, let's get this out of the way too, there could be multiple modes. We already know there's going to be additional modes, and that's another conversation for another day, but we'll let it seep into this one just a little bit, because you could have a standard co-op mode, which to me might not be my bread and butter, or it could be really good and I'd be surprised. And you could also have like a horde mode. I think horde would work perfectly inside of Sulfur because of the way the enemies work. Once you get like a handle on things and you get the knack of Sulfur, you start to see its kind of similarities and comparisons to Call of Duty Zombies. It starts to feel a lot like Call of Duty Zombies. The way the enemies work, as in they follow you and they hard lock onto you no matter where you are. Once they see you, you know, that's when that starts to happen. And sometimes before that. Sometimes you'll start an area and then notice every single enemy seemingly inside of your level is all at the beginning of your level, and it could be overwhelming. I've had it happen in town and dungeon multiple times to the point where it's like, how did I even do that without like drinking some of Arnold Schwarzenegger's blood or piss right beforehand? I don't know. Maybe not the pee-pee. I don't know. His pee-pee would be gross. I feel like old man pee is probably like a step, like a notch above anybody else's. Well, so I edited out a big chunk of what I just said because I started going on a weird tangent about Arnold Schwarzenegger and his bodily fluids, and I didn't think you needed to hear that. I hope I never have to hear it again after removing it through DaVinci Resolve. But what I was getting at was this game is very similar to COD Zombies in the way that you have to kite enemies and play around them and respect them, or else, you know, you die. Like if you don't learn to respect the enemies in Sulfur, you will die. A gruesome, probably rage-inducing death. Every time I play it, I'm like, yeah, this would be really good for a horde. And they'd have to make a few more maps, obviously. Horde levels need to be a little bit more open-ended. They could just use the style they have from areas like cave, castle, and everything, and then open them up to like Coliseum sizes with little barriers and maybe even rooms around. I think that would work especially well in co-op. It doesn't necessarily have to be round-based, but yeah, it kind of does. I mean, it would have to be round-based, right? But you wouldn't need the point system or anything because there's already loot. Maybe after 5 or 10 waves, you would get a chest. Maybe you guys can fight over the chest. That would be an interesting gameplay mechanic if you could turn it into a free-for-all, so you have the PvE and the PvP built in. There was a game, it was like a food slinging game. I already forgot the name of it. It was, Raw Men. How do you forget the name of that? It was Raw Men had a system where at the end, the winning team could decide if they wanted to share the loot or fight each other in a free-for-all, so one person would get all the XP and loot and everything. That would be really interesting, and I think on brand for Sulfur, so that would be cool if at the end you guys could, or after every 5 or 10 rounds, you guys can 1v1. Also similar to Borderlands, whereas then you could do the slap fights in 1v1 real quick. Most people probably don't want PvP in Sulfur. That's where that gets tricky. It would probably have to be a unanimous vote towards yes. If one person said no, probably not, so that people can keep their PvE going. And that's just an idea. These are all just ideas. We're doing some pre-production here. If at some point a dev ever heard an idea from the comments or in their Discord or Reddit, they might actually just run with it. If it sounds interesting enough, that helps them with, that's half the battle. That's good. That's a good thing. It's not something to be like, they took my idea. No. They were felt inspired and they wanted to make the game good, and your idea was good. Hopefully, at some point, they'll do that. They'll take ideas from the fans. I'm sure they already are. They're very deep-rooted. If you go in the Discord, you can see Sklet's always in there. I hope I'm saying his name right. Just chatting it up like a mug. He's a big chatter, that one, and I love that about him. Horde is my first idea that I not necessarily think would work better than co-op. None of the ideas I'm going to present I think work better than any of the other ones. Some might even be like a reach and worse. At the same time, I didn't want to come in here with 2 or 3 half-baked ideas and be like, now you do the rest of it. I did spend some time thinking about these, you know, really just letting it settle in my brain. And the other one would be another obvious one, which is like some Dark and Darker or Hunt Showdown shit. You all go into caves. That's where we get complicated. Once again, they would have to make some new levels if they wanted to do that kind of PvP extraction side of the extraction shooter of Sulfur. They would have to make a big level with all these mobs, and I don't think it would work. I don't think it would play very well if they went that route. because the way the enemies work, they're very squishy, sort of. Most of them, if all of them, they're all very squishy enemies. And part of the fear when you're playing Dark and Darker or Dungeonborn or Hunt Showdown is like, if you take a fight with a PvE enemy, they're going to take a while to take down. I think it would take a lot of balancing the enemies, the player, and everything for that to work, so I don't see that side of PvP being a thing. Now, maybe they've got it under control and that's what they want to do, and that is the end goal, and they think they know a way they can make that work. But me personally, I think that sounds like too much work for something that doesn't even sound that interesting in Sulfur, because the biggest and best end goal of Sulfur is getting all that loot and bringing it back. It's not about, the engagements are fun, but it's about making them fun. It's not about like every little baby goblin you kill is this well drawn out post-apocalyptic event that is horrifying and exciting at the same time. No, it's either going to be really cool because you did something, or really intense because there's so many of these enemies coming at you. So I don't know how to put it into words. I just don't think that kind of extraction PvP playstyle makes sense in Sulfur, so I wouldn't expect that. I personally am not expecting something like that, and that's probably a lot of people's biggest fears, because you see the game is a roguelite slash extraction shooter, and that the extraction part, for some people, I can see them being like, please don't do that. And I agree. Maybe some people really want that kind of thing. But if we wanted to think like a lower scale, there's a game called Dungeonborn. It's kind of notorious for being exactly like Dark and Darker. And it is. I mean, it's exactly like Dark and Darker. Hopefully the mic wasn't unplugged that whole time. It felt a little loose there. That would be annoying, because I was spewing, and I'm not going. How would I even go back? I would have to read my own lips. Let's hope we're not facing any technical difficulties here. That would be a travesty. In Dungeonborn, the way the multiplayer works is you can either do that standard PvP extraction thing, or you can do team deathmatch, which I found the team deathmatch to be much more exciting and more interesting than the PvP sort of thing. I don't know why. It's probably because it was a lower scale. It felt a lot like Call of Duty gunfights, where it's 1v1 or 2v2, and I think at one point they even had 3v3s. In Dungeonborn, it was 3v3, but I thought it played really well, and I think that could work really well for a PvP side of things here in Sulfur. I think that could work incredibly well. You bring in whatever kit you want, or not. Maybe they could just like spawn in with 10 random oils on each side, but also like obviously symmetrical, so you'd have a team of 2, I think would play decently well, and there'd be 10 oils, so 5 for each of you to choose from, and like a 2-minute setup period would be really interesting. And so both sides get to craft a gun or take 2 guns and split the oils between them. Most people, I think meta would be to just put all 5 on one gun and go out there. With the gun building system being so fluid and quick, you know, you don't need like a crafting bench or anything. You can just slap an oil or a scroll on a gun. I think that could be really interesting and add for a lot of variety in RNG, but keep it fair because it's symmetrical on both sides, and also game planning, because you and your buddy are going to have to decide who gets the scroll of, you know, Surge Storm, who gets to be the one that accidentally TKs both of you. Yeah, so I think that would be really good. If anything, Horde mode and TDM would be my 2 favorite choices for what they could do, but I'm not quite done yet. Again, I would like them to do multiple modes. If they're planning to do that 10-year lifespan, like they said they wanted to do something like Dead Cells where they go 10 years and beyond, if they're planning on that, I'm hoping for new modes and fun stuff like that just to keep us going. You know, Party Animals has been doing that. They added like kart racing and Smash, like Super Smash fighting and stuff. It's definitely an option for them to just keep adding modes. If they can't think of ways to add in new levels and story stuff, just add new modes that are exciting, new, refreshing, and fun, and that's going to keep people around. People like me. If we wanted to think outside of the box, I don't know why, and this is not a good idea. No, I had an idea last night that was like, my kid is going through 8-month-old teething. He's growing like 4 teeth at once and not sleeping. His sleep regression has gotten even worse. It gets worse every day. And it was basically a fever dream. And I was trying to fall asleep after he finally went to sleep. And in my brain, it was like some sort of Rust style gameplay. And now that I like think back on that while I'm a little bit more awake, that's a horrible idea. That's like the worst case, you know, the worst outcome we could get would be some sort of like weird PvP, PvE scenario. I guess maybe in my sleep deprivation mind, I thought, Well, that could work because there's already PvE, but that would be dumb. Imagine base building or something in Sulfur. That would be kind of neat. I'd rather have options to where you could like customize the church hub, put mannequins up, gun racks up, move stuff around, some Animal Crossing cozy gaming kind of style of like decorating. I guess, yeah, like decorating. It's not that absurd. That I would rather have that than any kind of base building. So yeah, that Rust idea is something I should have just kept to myself. Yeah, that's stupid. If that's the worst case scenario and one that they're probably like, why would we ever do that? And you're like, why would they ever do that? And I'm sitting here saying, why would they ever do that? The best case scenario, the best outcome we could see for Sulfur multiplayer would be if they did something crazy like Fortnite did. Now, Fortnite not necessarily made Battle Royale, but they took their awesome kind of building mechanics and added it to Battle Royale by essentially ripping off PUBG. I don't think anyone's going to argue that PUBG made it, or was it like some mod before that or whatever. The whole history of Battle Royales is really complicated. I'm sure someone's going to tell me what the little pieces I'm missing, but Fortnite just took that mode, added the building, and it revolutionized the genre. It made it way more interesting for a lot of people, including myself. I didn't like PUBG when it first came out. I probably only put like 5-10 hours in, and I was like, this isn't that fun. I didn't think it was that crazy. There's still people playing it to this day. A big player base enjoys PUBG, so I'm definitely in my own head with that. But I did enjoy Fortnite when it first came out. In fact, I enjoyed Save the World just like I enjoy Sulfur right now. So best case scenario would be for them to revolutionize gaming, which sounds absurd. If they could somehow come up with a new PvP experience, or even take from some popular trend. We're on the verge of a new gaming trend. It's been a long time since we've seen a new gaming trend. To my knowledge, the last one was probably like extraction shooters and stuff. And yeah, I guess that was this year or at the beginning of this year, but it was also kind of like dying out this year. Dark and Darker was a surprise hit. It feels almost forced. Extraction shooters being a little bit more popular feels a little forced. It doesn't feel as revolutionary as when Fortnite made Battle Royale. I'm waiting for something like that, some mode that everyone's, 3 years down the line, they're like, please don't add, I don't have any random ideas for modes in my head. Please don't add Battle Royale. I could have come up with a joke there or something, but I'm not, there's nothing clicking around up there. I need juice, that's why. Gotta get back in the game. So yeah, if they could somehow make something so new and interesting that everybody had to come and check it out, that could be the way to do it. They could also make that new mode like a free-to-play, and then have the attached Sulfur solo experience and possibly other cooperative modes as like a paid experience. That's always acceptable, in my opinion. Now, I know some people get a little shitty when games go free-to-play after being a paid experience for a while, and I'm not asking for it to be free-to-play. This is definitely not a game that should ever be free-to-play, unless they wanted to do some more inclusive multiplayer thing, which is definitely something I could see being a possibility to draw more people in. And that's really where my mind is right now, is that drawing people into Sulfur is the right way to do it. And I do think we're seeing an uptick in people taking interest in Sulfur. I was looking at, and I just closed out of it, son of a bitch. I was looking at the Steam charts the other day. I don't know why. I was just vibing, and it has gone up. I mean, the 24-hour peak is about doubled. So there's been something that's pushing people towards Sulfur. Honestly, we don't need multiplayer to do it. The bones and foundation and just the overall game of Sulfur is good enough to where people just try it. They will enjoy the hell out of it. That's how this works. It's just so good. People just need to try it. But this isn't about that. I've gone on and on about that. I go on about that in nearly every video I make. This is about what we think multiplayer could be. Again, I would love to hear from the devs to see if they have any idea of what it would be. I imagine they do, because they're very passionate people. Passionate people have a tendency to just come up with these creative ideas and write them down, pitch them. And if there's only 4 people on the team, every idea they have, they're pitching around to each other because they love each other. I have to assume. They better love each other. If you guys don't love each other, I'm going to be upset. It better be like the snuggliest environment over at Perfect Random, or I'm going to start flipping tables and throwing glasses like my favorite trashy reality TV shows. That's about all I have, and it was very long-winded, so that's good. That's about all I have for the multiplayer ideas in Sulfur. I guess I could have come up with some more, but that's where I need your help. If you guys have any ideas of what you want to see for multiplayer for the last time, comment them, and then let's keep going. I really think you guys are going to do a better job than me at this. So my two favorites that I could think of would be Horde, Team Deathmatch. I do have them written down. I guess I only had 6. Well, there was the Rust one, where I was like, I shouldn't even read this. So yeah, I only had 6. I wrote them down real quick. A couple of notes there. I think Horde or TDM would be the most interesting in my opinion, but I do expect co-op to be the first idea. That's the most, it's like 90% going to be what it is. I just hope they find a way to balance it to make it fun, or else I'm just going to keep playing single player. And also, what do you want? Do you want PvE or do you want PvP? Because as it is a extraction shooter, PvP is definitely an option. I mean, it's a very real possibility. I do think it would be fun to shoot people with my crazy-ass weapons and to see what kind of crazy-ass weapons somebody else can build to shoot at me and piss me off to the point where I never want to play the fucking game again. I mean, that's how PvP works, right? But I'm definitely on side PvE. I think PvE, like a Horde mode, would be ideal. I would like to play Horde mode by myself. Essentially, Endless would kind of be like Horde mode. So it wouldn't even be that hard to figure out how to put that in. Okay, y'all know I have a hard time stopping talking, so I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to do that right now.